So this lesson covers the material in section B of Unit 13, adding and subtracting polynomials, and this is going to draw on some of the material we discussed yesterday on using the distributive property. So what we want to be able to do here is add and subtract polynomials by identifying and collecting like terms, adding or subtracting the coefficients, and changing the sign of the terms as appropriate when we are subtracting. So first off, let's do a little bit of a review of what are meant by like terms. So here we have a whole list of terms here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 terms. And the question that's asked here is how many of these terms are like terms with the term negative 7x squared plus y? So first off, let's remind ourselves what it means for things to be like terms. Like terms have the same variable with the same exponent on it. So our variables in negative 7x squared y is our variable is x with an exponent of 2 and the variable y with an exponent of 1. So we want to look through here and see if there are any other terms that have an x squared and a y with just the exponent of 1 on y, even though we don't write it. So there's one here. There is one, let's see. There's one right here, even though it doesn't have a coefficient. And let's see. This one here, nope, because the squared is on the y and not on the x. This one here has a squared on both the x and the y. So I think there are only going to be 2 of them here that are like terms with negative 7x squared y. So we have talked about polynomials before. So 4x plus 3 and 7x plus 2 are examples of polynomials. Okay, and polynomials are just a series of terms that are connected together by addition or subtraction. If we want to add them, we can write this as an addition statement, 7x plus 3 plus 7x plus 2. Now, how do we add these together? Well, when we're doing addition of polynomials, the brackets are just there to indicate where one polynomial was and where the second polynomial was. Once we're adding them together, those brackets don't matter. So we can just take the brackets off here and write it as 4x plus 3 plus 7x plus 2. Now we can think of this just as a string of terms. How do we add these terms together? Well, we look for like terms, and then we're going to move the like terms together and then combine them. So this process is called collecting like terms. So the 4x and the 7x are like terms, and remember that sign, that positive on that 7, stays with that term. Positive 3 and positive 2 are also like terms, so let's just write this putting the like terms next to each other. 4x plus 7x, and then positive 3, and then positive 2. And then we can collect these like terms together. If we've got 4x's and we're adding 7x's to them, we have a grand total of 11x's. So we're just adding these coefficients together and keeping the variable part the same. Our next pair of like terms, positive 3 and positive 2, we add them together, we're going to get positive 5. So our final answer here for 4x plus 3 plus 7x plus 2 is going to be 11x plus 5. So let's take a look at a couple of other examples here. Okay. Again, we've got 2 polynomials and we want to add them together. So our first one, we've got 2b squared minus 2b plus negative 4b squared minus 7b plus 1. So we've got a binomial here, that first one, and a trinomial in the second one. We're going to use the same steps that we used before. First, we're going to just get rid of these brackets and think of them as just a long list of terms. So 2b squared minus 2b. Now, as I drop these brackets, the sign that I want on this 4b squared is going to be that negative sign, negative 4b squared. Same thing with this negative 7b. It's going to stay negative 7b. And this positive 1 is going to stay as a positive 1. So those signs in front of those numbers stay with those numbers. Now we can find our like terms. We've got a 2b squared, which is a like term with negative 4b squared. We've got a negative 2b, which is a like term with negative 7b. And the positive 1 doesn't have any terms that are like with it in this expression, so we're just going to leave it be. So what we want to add is we want to add the 2b squared and the negative 4b squared. We've got a negative 2b and a negative 7b. Just putting those like terms together, and then plus 1. Okay, so we can combine together 2b squared and 4b and negative 4b squared. So if we've got 2 minus 4, that's going to give us negative 2, and the b squared stays the same. Our second pair of like terms, we've got a negative 2 and a negative 7. So negative 2 minus 7 is going to be negative 9, and the variable part stays the same, negative 9b. And then the plus 1. So adding those two polynomials together gives us the polynomial negative 2b squared minus 9b plus 1. All right, let's move on to the next one here. We've got negative 2x squared minus 3x plus 7 plus negative 2x squared plus 4x plus 6. All right, let's get rid of our brackets and just think of this as a list of terms. Oh, I don't want an exponent 3 on there. I want an exponent of 2. So negative 2x squared minus 3x plus 7. If I get rid of these brackets, I'm just going to keep the sign on this negative 2x squared, so it's going to stay negative 2x squared. My plus 4x is going to stay plus 4x, and the plus 6 is going to stay plus 6. All right, let's find our like terms here. We've got a negative 2x squared and a negative 2x squared. We've got a negative 3x and a positive 4x, and then we've got a plus 7 and we've got a plus 6. So let's just move those like terms so that they're next to each other. Minus 2x squared minus 3x plus 4x, and then plus 7 plus 6. And then we can add them together or subtract them as appropriate. So negative 2x squared minus 2x squared. So let's see, negative 2 minus 2 is going to give me negative 4. The x squared stays exactly the same. My next pair of like terms, I've got negative 3x plus 4. Negative 3 plus 4 is going to be positive 1. And then I'll just have an x. So if you're having a little bit of trouble with adding or subtracting these integers, don't be afraid to just punch those into your calculator. Do negative 3 plus 4 and look at what the answer is. And then finally, we've got a positive 7 and a positive 6. So 7 plus 6 is going to give me 13. Okay. So that's adding polynomials together, and it's basically just collecting like terms. Now, what if we want to subtract polynomials? With subtracting polynomials, there's one additional step. Okay, so if we've got these two polynomials that we started with, 4x plus 3, and we want to subtract 7x plus 2, we've got this negative sign out in front of the brackets. We want to use the distributive property with that negative sign. So we imagine that what there is here is a negative 1 right here. And we want to take that negative 1 and we want to multiply it by each of these things in the second bracket. Okay. So for the first bracket, it's just going to stay a 4x and a positive 3. But as we do that distributive property, we're going to have negative 1 times 7x, which is going to give us negative 7x. And negative 1 times positive 2 is going to give us a negative 2. So we've changed the signs on these two terms in our second bracket. They're now a negative 7x and a negative 2. And then we can proceed just as we did before. We identify our like terms, and we move them so that they're next to each other. 4x minus 7x, then plus 3 minus 2, and then we add or subtract the like terms as appropriate. So we have 4x minus 7x. 4 minus 7 is going to be negative 3x. And then 3 minus 2 is just going to be a positive 1. So negative 3x plus 1. Okay, so let's just do a couple more examples here just to reinforce this process here. So I have a squared minus 2a minus negative a squared minus 2a. So there's a lot more negative signs in this one, but the process is going to be exactly the same. So for this first bracket, it's just still an a squared minus 2a. For the second bracket, we imagine this negative 1 in here, and we're going to multiply it by each of these terms in this bracket. Negative 1 times, well, we would think of that as a negative 1 as well. So negative 1 times negative 1 is going to give me a positive 1, a squared. Remember, negative times negative gives us positive. And then negative 1 times negative 2a is going to give us positive 2a. So we've gone from negative a squared and negative 2a to positive a squared, positive 2a. All right, let's collect our like terms. So we've got an a squared and a positive a squared. We've got a negative 2a and a positive 2a. So a squared plus a squared, just not writing the 1, negative 2a plus 2a. So a squared plus a squared, it's like 1 plus 1 is 2. We're going to have 2a squareds. Then negative 2a plus 2a, well, negative 2 plus 2 is going to give us 0. So this would be like 0a. But if we have 0 of something, we usually just don't even write it. So our final answer here is just going to be the 2a squared. Okay, let's take a look at our last little example here. So we've got negative 2x squared minus 3x minus negative 3x squared plus 4x plus 6. Again, we are going to, for the first bracket, just remove these brackets. For the second one, we're going to use our distributive property. So think of this as a negative 1. Negative 1 times a negative 3 is going to give us positive 3x squared. Negative 1 times positive 4 is going to give us negative 4x. Negative 1 times positive 6, negative 6. And then we look for our like terms. Negative 2x squared, 3x squared, negative 3x, negative 4x, and this negative 6 is all by itself. So just bringing these terms next to each other, negative 2x plus 3x squared, minus 3x, minus 4x, minus 6, and we can collect them together. Negative 2 plus 3 is going to give us 1, so that's going to be 1x squared. Negative 3x minus 4x is going to be negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7, so negative 7x, and then the negative 6 just stays the same. Okay. So now it's your turn to try. So here are two questions that I'd like you to try. Okay, so I'll read out the questions. Okay, you should write them down somewhere on paper or on the whiteboard in front of you, and pause the video and then try these two questions. So one is an addition question and one is a subtraction question. Okay, and then after you've tried them, start the video again and you can watch my solution to it. Okay, so pause the video now and try these two questions. Okay, how would this work? Well, here's our first one. We're just going to get rid of the brackets. 3x cubed plus 2x squared. Oh, sorry, that's a 3x squared. Minus 4x plus 5 plus x cubed minus 2x squared plus x minus 4. It's addition, so we're just taking away those brackets and keeping all of those signs exactly the same. Do we have any like terms? You bet we do. There are our like terms, and I don't know, we'll just put a dot under these ones here. Okay, and then what do we get when we collect them? Negative 3x cubed plus x cubed, sorry, 3x cubed plus x cubed is going to give me 4x cubed. 3x squared minus 2x squared is just going to give me a 1x squared. Negative 4x plus x, negative 3x, and then 5 minus 4 is just going to give me a positive 1. So we have 4x cubed plus x squared minus 3x plus 1. All right, let's take a look at the subtraction example here. For the first term, we just remove the brackets, keep everything the same. X cubed plus 3x squared plus 5x minus 4. For the second one, we have to remember to distribute this negative sign. Negative 3x cubed. Negative 1 times negative 8 is going to give me positive 8x squared. Negative 1 times negative 5 is going to give me positive 5x. Negative 1 times positive 6 is going to give me negative 6. our like terms. We've got an x cubed and a negative 3x cubed. We've got a 3x squared and an 8x squared, positive 8x squared, a plus 5x and a plus 5x, and then a negative 4 and a negative 6. X cubed minus 3x cubed, 1 minus 3 is going to be negative 2x cubed. 3x squared plus 8x squared, positive 11x squared. 5x plus 5x, we're going to have 10 x's in total. And then negative 4 minus 6, punching that into our calculator if we have to, negative 10. So our final answer here, negative 2x cubed plus 11x squared plus 10x minus 10.